The library was always quiet, especially in the back room where dusty shelves held books that hadn't been used in years. That's where Adam found it. He was looking for material for a term paper when his gaze accidentally caught on a tattered spine sticking out a little further than the rest. The book looked old, too old even for this place. The cover was darkened leather, cracked with age, but there was no title or author's name on it. As he ran his finger along the spine, he felt a chill run down his spine. Curiosity got the better of him. He took the book out and carefully opened it. There was no familiar text on the pages, only rows of strange symbols, dark, as if written in dried blood. They seemed random, but the longer he looked, the more it seemed to make sense. And then he noticed something strange. The room grew darker. Not suddenly, not right away. The light seemed to be fading, like a candle about to go out. Adam looked around. The lamps above his head were still burning, but their light was no longer warm but seemed cold and dim, as if passing through a layer of something invisible. For a second he thought he saw something move in the corner, between the bookshelves. But when he blinked, he saw only emptiness. Adam slammed the book shut. The light returned. He swallowed, looking around nervously. The library was as quiet as before, but the feeling of unease did not leave him. Without knowing why, he took the book with him. And that same night he made a mistake. He opened it again. That night, Adam's room was dim. He placed the ancient book on the table and looked at it for a long time, as if waiting for it to explain its existence. His mind was struggling with curiosity. He remembered the strange feeling when he opened it in the library. But now, alone in his room, where the dim lamp cast long shadows on the walls, the book beckoned more than ever. He opened it slowly. The symbols on the pages were the same as before, but now they seemed to shimmer. When he ran his finger along the line, the letters trembled slightly, as if reacting to his touch. The light in the room grew weaker. Adam froze. The shadows on the walls stretched out, became thicker, acquiring a strange depth. They no longer looked random, their outlines were too clear. He turned the page. At that moment, the symbols began to move. At first it was barely noticeable, as if the ink was spreading, forming new lines. But then the letters began to slide across the page, forming strange patterns that looked like living creatures. Adam felt the cold creeping up on him slowly. The shadows behind him began to thicken. He glanced at the wall, where before there had been only blurry silhouettes of furniture. Now there were figures, tall, thin, with unclear edges. They did not move, but their presence was palpable. He slammed the book shut. The light grew brighter again, and the shadows retreated. Adam was breathing heavily. But something had changed. The room was different now. When he looked at the wall again, one of the shadows remained. It no longer disappeared, even in full light. It stood and watched. From that moment on, everything changed. The shadow never disappeared. It always remained in his room, in the corner, behind the closet, by the door. Always motionless, always silent. Adam tried to ignore it, but as soon as he turned away, he felt movement. When he looked again, the shadow was in the same place, but the feeling of its close presence made his heart pound wildly. He stopped sleeping. The light in his room was now on all night, but he knew it did not change anything. The book remained on his desk. He was afraid of it, but every time he tried to get rid of it, hide it, lock it in a drawer, even throw it away, it was back where he had left it. And every night, the symbols on its pages came to life. One day he noticed something new. Words written in a familiar language appeared among the moving letters. "You are almost ready." Adam froze. He didn't understand what it meant, but he felt the book was getting closer to its goal. That night he woke up in complete darkness. The lamp was out. He reached for the phone, but the screen was dead. There was no electricity. The silence was deeper than ever. And suddenly he realized the book was gone. The table was empty. A chill ran through his body as he looked around. Shadows filled the room. Their outlines became dense. as if they soaked the air around them. And then he saw them. The figures that had once been just reflections on the wall were now standing in the room itself. Tall, long, distorted. They were waiting. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't. He couldn't even move. The shadows were moving. He felt something cold touch his shoulder. At that moment, reality dissolved. The last thing he heard was a whisper. "Welcome." The next morning, the room was empty. Adam no longer existed. But if you stand in front of a mirror in the dark and stare into it long enough, you might notice another shadow.